In the heart of Westbridge Private Hospital, where the soft hum of fluorescent lights whispered secrets of life and recovery, Anna Monroe felt an inexplicable tension in the air as she navigated the sterile, pristine corridors. Today was unlike any other. An unsettling summons from Dr. Harris, the esteemed head of neurology, had summoned her to his office, igniting a flurry of anxious questions in her mind. Had she erred in her duties? Was a transfer on the horizon? With a deep breath, she rapped gently on the polished mahogany door, the scent of expensive leather and antiseptic greeting her as she entered. "Anna." Dr. Harris's voice cut through the heavy atmosphere, his back to her as he gazed out over the city skyline. "We have a patient who demands more than mere medical care. This is not for those faint of heart." His words hung in the air, a cryptic challenge. Her curiosity piqued, Anna's eyebrows knitted together. "What kind of patient?" she inquired, her voice tinged with caution. Dr. Harris turned his sharp eyes now on her, and with a deliberate gesture he pointed to a thick medical file on his desk. "Grant Carter," he announced, his tone solemn. The name struck Anna like a bolt of lightning. Grant Carter, the Grant Carter. The cover of the file, adorned with a grim newspaper clipping of a catastrophic car crash, confirmed it. A year ago, the city's youngest billionaire had met with a tragic fate, his sports car plunging off a bridge into the night's abyss, leaving him in a coma from which he had not awakened. His name, once synonymous with ruthless ambition and untouchable success, now whispered tales of tragedy and resilience. What miracle awaited in the wake of his sudden awakening? What role would she, a mere nurse, play in this unfolding drama? Anna found herself standing in a room that was more like a tomb than a hospital suite, the silence thick and heavy wrapping around her like a shroud. She could almost feel the weight of the emptiness, the quiet whispers of a life once vibrant, now reduced to the mechanical beeping of machines. Grant Carter, a titan of industry, now a mere echo of his former glory, lay motionless, a ghost in his own body. His family, once ever present, had dwindled to rare visits, their footsteps echoing less frequently down the corridor. Dr. Harris had shared this with a voice laced with both resignation and a plea for someone to truly care. "You think I can be that person?" Anna asked, her voice barely above a whisper, her heart pounding with the enormity of the task. Dr. Harris's nod was firm, his eyes conveying a silent but profound belief in her capability. "I do," he confirmed, his gaze steady. The decision was daunting, overwhelming, even to take on the care of a man who might never rise from his slumber. Yet, in the depths of her soul, Anna knew her answer before she even voiced it. "I'll do it," she declared, her resolve hardening like the steel that once built Grant Carter's empire. The private suite on the hospital's top floor was unlike any other. Here, luxury tried to mask the reality of the situation. The room was vast, with chandeliers casting a soft, dim light and dark oak furniture that whispered of elegance. At the center of this opulence lay Grant Carter, his presence commanding even in repose. His strong jawline, the dark lashes fanning against his pallid skin, and the broad shoulders visible beneath the thin hospital gown, spoke of a man not at peace, but in a relentless battle against silence. Anna's breath caught as she approached him, the reality of his condition striking her with a chill. She adjusted his IV drip with practiced hands, then hesitated, a warm cloth in hand. The moment her fingers brushed against his skin, a shiver passed through her, not from cold, but from the gravity of her role. Here was a man who had shaped lives, now silenced, yet in his stillness there was a call to action, a plea for connection in his unending quiet. A shiver snaked down Anna's spine, an indescribable sensation that whispered to her of a silent connection, as if Grant, in the recesses of his mind, was aware of her presence. The heart monitor's soft beeps, steady and rhythmic, filled the sterile silence of the room, a constant reminder of life's persistence. Shaking off the peculiar feeling, Anna returned to her task, her movements deliberate and caring, as she wiped his arms, his chest, ensuring his body was tended to with the utmost respect. "I guess you don't get a say in this, do you?" she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, her words seeming to hang in the air like delicate notes of a melody. Silence responded as always, yet she found herself smiling slightly, a warmth spreading through her, despite the clinical environment. Days melded into a routine. Each morning and evening Anna would bathe him, change his sheets, check his vitals. But soon her visits became more than mere medical obligations. She found herself pouring out stories, recounting her day, describing the world beyond the hospital walls. "You should see the cafeteria food, Grant. It's tragic even for a billionaire. I doubt you'd survive it," she said, her tone laced with humor. Silence greeted her again, but she continued, "I don't even know why I'm talking to you. Maybe I just like the sound of my own voice." Her voice echoed slightly in the quiet room, the heart monitor's beep, a steady beat, almost like it was responding to her words. Or maybe, she paused, a thoughtful look crossing her face. "Maybe you're actually listening." Anna hummed softly, dipping a clean washcloth into warm water, the routine now a comforting ritual. The sterile quiet, the monitor's beeps, the IV drip's hum, all had become the backdrop to her visits. Leaning over, she gently wiped Grant's face, her touch soft, yet assured. "You know," she said, her voice light with a playful edge, "I read somewhere that people in comas can still hear things. So technically, you're the worst listener I've ever met." No response, of course, but Anna didn't mind. She sighed, a small, resigned smile playing on her lips, her heart both heavy and hopeful. She brushed her fingers gently along the curve of his jaw, pausing when she thought she sensed a slight movement. Her breath caught in her throat. Had she conjured it from her longing? She froze, her eyes locked on his hand, motionless against the stark white sheets. With a nervous chuckle, she shook her head. "Great. Now I'm seeing things. Maybe I should be the one in the hospital bed." But the unease persisted, gnawing at her like a persistent whisper. Over the next few days it happened again. This time she was fluffing his pillow, her gaze elsewhere, when she felt it the slightest pressure against her wrist. Her head whipped down. Grant's hand had shifted just a sliver, but enough to send her heart racing. "Grant," she whispered, her voice barely a breath, not fully aware she had spoken. Silence met her. Only the relentless beep, beep, beep of the monitor filled the room. She placed her hand over his, feeling the warmth of his skin, the stillness beneath her touch. And yet, was it a trick of her mind, or was there a shift, a sign of life stirring within him? Anna couldn't dismiss the sensation. It haunted her, leading her to report it to Dr. Harris. His skeptical eyebrow arched as she recounted the occurrences. "I thought I was imagining it at first," she confessed, "but it keeps happening." His fingers twitch. His hand moves slightly. It's subtle, but it's there. Dr. Harris leaned back, his eyes narrowing in contemplation. "We'll run some tests," he said after a moment. "But don't let your hopes soar too high, Anna. It could just be reflexive muscle spasms." Anna nodded, though inside her heart refused to accept that explanation. She felt something was changing, something profound. And when the test results returned, she wasn't surprised. "There's increased brain activity," Dr. Harris informed her, his voice tinged with cautious optimism. "His neurological responses are stronger than before." Her heart leaped. Could this mean? But Dr. Harris hesitated, his words halting her soaring spirits. "Not necessarily," he cautioned. "It could mean—" The glow of dawn had barely kissed the hospital room when Anna, with a heart heavy yet hopeful, stood beside Grant Carter's still figure. The rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor, a constant companion for the past year, now seemed like the steady drumbeat of her own anticipation. As she rolled up her sleeves, preparing for the daily ritual of care, she felt a surge of something different in the air. Today wouldn't just be another routine. It was a whisper of change. "Oh, Grant!" She began, her voice a tender caress in the silent room. "I've been thinking of getting a dog, you know. Someone to listen to me, unlike you who just lies there ignoring me all day." Her smile was faint, a mix of jest and longing. She dipped the warm cloth into the basin, the water rippling softly, and began to gently cleanse his chest. Her movements meticulous, almost reverent. As she worked, Anna found herself speaking more freely, the words tumbling out as if they had been waiting for this very moment. "I don't know if you can hear me, but something tells me you can," she murmured, her gaze lingering on his strong, unmoving features. She spoke of her frustrations with Patience, the infuriating doctor on the third floor, who pilfered her coffee, and the dreams of her childhood in a quaint, sleepy town where she first imagined herself as a nurse. Silence was her only answer, yet she felt an inexplicable connection, as if her words were reaching through the veil of his coma. "Is it too much to hope, Grant?" she wondered aloud, her voice a mix of jest and earnestness. "I was just making conversation." She sighed, reaching for his arm, the cloth running over his skin. Her fingers brushed against his wrist, and then a miracle. His fingers tightened around her wrist. In that moment, time paused, and Anna's heart skipped a beat. Could this be the sign she had been waiting for? The room, filled with the morning's golden light, seemed to hold its breath, waiting with her for what might come next. Her breath caught a sharp, icy shard in her throat as she gazed at his hand. The touch was feeble, a mere whisper of pressure, yet unmistakably present. "Oh my God!" Her heart thundered its rhythm, a wild cacophony in her ears. She yearned to dismiss it as mere reflex, a meaningless twitch, but reality wouldn't allow such denial. For in that moment, Grant's eyes snapped open. Anna stood frozen, her mind a whirlpool of shock. She had spent countless days, months, staring at those closed eyelids, searching for any sign of life, any flicker of hope. And now those deep ocean blue eyes, once so vibrant, were looking right at her, confused, unfocused, yet undeniably alive. His lips parted, his voice a hoarse whisper, barely audible, company la. Her entire being tensed, her knees threatening to give way as a tidal wave of disbelief and sheer panic swept over her. If spoke, he woke up. The impossible had just unfolded before her eyes. The basin of water slipped from her trembling grasp, crashing to the pristine white floor as she staggered back. Oh my God! Her instincts surged, propelling her hand to slam against the emergency button on the wall. A loud alarm shrieked through the hallway, its urgency slicing through the silence. Mere seconds later, the door burst open and a flurry of doctors and nurses, led by Dr. Harris, stormed in. "What happened?" Dr. Harris demanded, his voice cutting through the chaos as he moved to Grant's bedside, his hands already assessing the vital signs. He grabbed my hand." Anna stammered, her voice quivering with emotion. "He opened his eyes. Her words trailed off as she looked back at Grant, his chest rising and falling in shaky breaths, his eyes darting around the room as if trying to piece together the fragments of his reality. He wasn't fully aware, not yet, but he was here, among them again. Dr. Harris's expression shifted, a mixture of surprise and professional urgency, painting his features as he absorbed the gravity of the situation. From shock, the room erupted into a flurry of urgent activity. "Get me a neurological team now," Dr. Harris's voice cut through the chaos, his command sparking a frenzy among the nurses. Their voices merged into a cacophony of concern and disbelief as they dashed to perform the necessary tests. The whirlwind of motion enveloped the room, yet Anna's gaze remained locked on Grant. Then, as if sensing her stare, his eyes met hers once more. This time he didn't look away. Everything was moving so swiftly. Doctors were bombarding him with questions, shining lights into his pupils, testing his motor functions. But amidst it all, Grant's eyes kept returning to Anna. She stepped forward, her heart pounding, and whispered, "Grant, do you remember anything?" He stared at her, his blinks slow and deliberate. A long silence stretched between them, thick with anticipation. Then his fingers twitched again, and before Anna could react, he reached for her hand. Weakly, slowly, but with undeniable purpose, his hand enveloped hers, his grip fragile, yet firm, as if he had known her forever. Anna's breath caught in her throat. Dr. Harris looked up sharply. "Grant, do you know who she is?" Grant didn't respond right away. His brows furrowed, his gaze never leaving Anna. "I don't know," he murmured, his voice rough from months of silence. "But I feel like I should." A shiver ran down Anna's spine. Even though Grant Carter didn't remember her consciously, something deep within him did. The days following Grant's miraculous awakening were a whirlwind of tests, therapy, and endless inquiries. Doctors marveled at his recovery. Physically, he was weak, but improving, his muscles stiff from a year of immobility, regaining strength through rehabilitation. But mentally, that was a different story. Grant couldn't recall anything about the accident, and the more they pressed him for details, the more his frustration grew. "Grant, let's try again," Dr. Harris urged during one of their sessions. "What's the last thing you remember?" Grant rubbed his temples, his expression a mix of confusion and pain. Grant's breath caught in his throat, a sharp exhale cutting through the heavy air. "I've told you, it's just fragments, flashes," he said, his voice tinged with both frustration and confusion. "Tell me about them." Anna pressed gently, her eyes fixed on him with an unwavering intensity. A long, heavy silence fell between them. Grant closed his eyes, his brows knitting together in concentration. "I remember a feeling," he began, his voice slow, almost hesitant. "Like something was terribly wrong, like I was in danger." Anna, who had been listening with a quiet intensity, felt her muscles tense. Grant's fingers curled into fists as he continued. "There was a road, headlights, and then nothing, just darkness." Dr. Harris let out a sigh, his voice a soothing balm in the room's tension. "It's not uncommon for trauma victims to block out painful memories. They might return on their own, but for now our priority is your recovery." Grant nodded, yet Anna noticed the storm brewing behind his clenched jaw. Deep within her, an unsettling suspicion grew, a whisper that something was profoundly amiss. That night, unable to shake the unease, Anna ventured into the hospital archives. She had skimmed Grant's file before, but now she examined every detail with renewed scrutiny. And there it was, a detail she had overlooked, the accident reconstruction team's report. It didn't say the brakes were worn out or malfunctioned. It stated they were tampered with. A chill ran down her spine. This was no mere accident. Someone had orchestrated an attempt on Grant's life, and he was oblivious to this sinister truth. With a trembling breath, she closed the file. She had to tell him. The realization was stark. If someone had tried to kill him once, what was to stop them from trying again? Grant's recovery was nothing short of miraculous. Within weeks, he had progressed from being confined to his bed to sitting up, feeding himself, and articulating his thoughts in full sentences. Now, with the aid of physical therapy, he was relearning to walk. And through every moment, every stumble, every victory, Anna was there, a steadfast companion in his journey back to life. At a moment when surrender seemed his only option, she was the beacon that pulled him back from the edge. "I can't do this," Grant whispered, his hands gripping the parallel bars with a fierce intensity as he struggled to lift himself. "Yes, you can." Anna's voice was firm, her presence beside him a pillar of strength. "You've come too far, Grant. Don't stop now." He turned to meet her gaze, his breath labored from the effort. It wasn't just encouragement she offered, it was belief, unwavering faith in his ability to rise again. Her conviction sparked something within him. With a determined exhale, he took another step, his heart pounding with both exertion and resolve. "That's it?" Anna's face glowed with joy, her eyes reflecting the pride she felt. And then, something miraculous happened. For the first time since his awakening, a genuine smile spread across Grant's face. It wasn't a smile of courtesy or duty, but one born from a spark of life rekindled within him. He knew exactly who had lit that flame, Anna. She wasn't like the others who saw him as a project or a tragic figure. She saw him simply Grant. And that was why he felt an inexplicable pull towards her whenever she entered the room. Her voice, like a melody, drew him from the lingering shadows of his mind. Her touch, whether steadying him as he walked or adjusting his pillow, sent a thrill through his skin that he couldn't quite name. One evening, after a grueling therapy session, Anna proposed an idea. "Fresh air might do you some good," she suggested with a smile, her eyes twinkling with the promise of something more. Grant, intrigued, agreed. Outside, under the vast sky, everything changed. The cool night air, the rustling of the trees, the moon bathing the world in its gentle light. Here, he felt like a person again, not just a patient or a puzzle with missing pieces. Here in the hospital garden, life seemed to resume its rhythm, and for that, he had Anna to thank. As they strolled through the moonlit garden, Grant felt Anna's presence beside him, her hand gently clasping his arm. At first, he mistook her touch for mere professional obligation, but soon the subtle signs of her affection became undeniable. Her fingers lingered with a tender hesitation on his wrist, her eyes stealing glances when she believed his attention was elsewhere and her breath catching whenever he drew near. The realization struck him like a bolt of lightning. She felt it too, that magnetic pull, that silent yet profound connection. They paused by a quaint stone bench, where the shadows danced under the silver glow of the moon. Turning to face her, Grant's heart pounded, but not from exertion. Anna, about to speak, was silenced by his sudden gentle grasp of her hand. Her lips parted in astonishment, her gaze locked with his in a silent question. "I don't recall much of my life before this moment," Grant confessed, his voice barely a whisper yet laden with emotion. "But there's one certainty I hold, Anna." He tightened his hold on her fingers, conveying more than words could. "I trust you." The declaration, though simple, carried the weight of his world, and from the way Anna's breath hitched her cheeks, glowing softly under the moonlight, and her lack of retreat, he knew she felt the depth of his words. That night sleep eluded Grant. He lay in his hospital bed, his body weak, but his mind a tempest of thoughts. Then, like a dam breaking a memory, surged forth. He was driving the road slick with rain, his windshield wipers battling the downpour. His hands gripped the steering wheel, his mind still fogged from the meeting he'd just left. Something was amiss. And then, blinding headlights, a black car swerving into his lane, speeding toward him with lethal intent. Speed Grant wrestled with the steering wheel, his tires screeching on the slick pavement. The brakes refused to obey, and his heart thundered in his chest as he fought to regain control. Just before the inevitable collision, his gaze flitted to the roadside, where a shadowy figure stood eerily calm, watching. Then darkness enveloped him. Grant's eyes shot open, his breathing ragged and uneven. His pulse pounded against his temples, sweat beading on his skin. The memory was so vivid, so excruciatingly real. Now the chilling truth dawned on him: this was no mere accident. Someone had attempted to end his life. The next morning, as Anna entered his room, she sensed an immediate shift in the air. Grant, typically adorned with a mischievous smirk, now bore a tense, hardened expression, his hands balled into fists. "Grant, what's wrong?" she inquired, her voice laced with concern. His piercing blue eyes, now filled with a fierce intensity, met hers. "I remember something," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Anna's heart plummeted. "The accident?" she asked, her voice trembling. He gave a stiff nod. "It wasn't an accident, Anna. Someone tampered with my brakes. And there was a man." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "Just standing there watching as my car crashed." A shiver cascaded down Anna's spine. Everything she had feared was now confirmed. But who could harbor such malice? And why? Over the next few days, Anna and Grant delved deep into the mire of his past. They sifted through files, company records, any scrap that might hint at a motive or a culprit. Then, like a bolt from the blue, they found it a financial transfer. A hefty sum had been wired mere days before the crash. The recipient, a notorious criminal known for orchestrating staged accident, and the sender, Nathan Carter Grant's half-brother. The revelation struck like a sledgehammer. It was him. Grant whispered, his grip on the table's edge white-knuckled. Nathan had always been consumed by jealousy, always felt overshadowed. Grant, the cherished son, the heir to their father's legacy, had always been bathed in the limelight, while he was left to languish in obscurity. Now he had dared to obliterate Grant from existence. Anna felt her heart seize with anguish. Grant, he wanted you dead. Grant's jaw tightened with resolve. And now I will ensure he pays for his treachery. That evening, under the cloak of twilight, Grant and Anna convened in the dimly lit study of the Carter estate, a place steeped in history and secrets. Nathan, lounging in a plush leather chair, swirled his whiskey with a mocking grin as they entered. "Well, well," he sneered, "the dead man walks." Grant's eyes blazed with an inferno of fury. "Why did you do it, Nathan?" His voice was a low growl. Nathan took a leisurely sip, his smirk unwavering. "You already know why," he drawled, the ice clinking against the glass in a chilling symphony. Anna, unable to contain her outrage, stepped forward. "You tried to kill your own brother. For what money powers?" The smirk on Nathan's face vanished, replaced by a scowl of venom. "For everything that should have been mine," he spat. "You were always the golden child, the heir, the one who had everything handed to him on a silver platter. Well, guess what? I was tired of waiting for my turn." Grant's hands curled into fists, his voice icy. "So you hired someone to sabotage my car." Nathan laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. "I didn't think you'd survive, but hey, miracles happen, right?" Rage seethed within Anna, ready to erupt. But before she could unleash her fury, the door burst open. Two officers, stern and unyielding, stepped into the room, Nathan's face drained of color. "Nathan Carter!" One officer declared, his voice echoing through the tense silence. "You're under arrest for attempted murder." Nathan spun around, his expression morphing into sheer panic. "You set me up, Grant." Grant tilted his head, a calm amidst the storm. "No, brother," he said with a chilling finality, "you set yourself up." As Nathan was dragged away, his screams of empty threats fading into the distance, the door slammed shut with a resounding thud. A heavy silence enveloped the room. Grant exhaled deeply, his shoulders sagging, as if the weight of the world had finally been lifted. It was over. Justice had been served. The grandeur of the Carter estate had always loomed large, a castle of affluence, cold and imposing, its walls echoing with the clout of generations past. Yet as Anna crossed the threshold into the softly lit dining hall, the air felt different, almost tender, as if the fortress had transformed into a haven of intimacy. The gentle dance of candlelight played across the table, exquisitely adorned, set against the breathtaking backdrop of the city skyline through expansive windows. The fragrance of fresh roses permeated the room, mingling with the chill of a wine bottle poised beside two meticulously arranged plates. Anna's breath hitched, her voice a whisper of awe. "Grant, what is all this?" she asked, turning to find him standing behind her. His hands nestled in his pockets, his gaze a blend of softness and intensity. "Dinner," he replied with simplicity, yet the word held a world of meaning. "Just you and me." Her heart constricted. The past weeks had been a tempest of emotions, from his recovery to uncovering the chilling truths behind his accident to the arrest of his brother. Now, with the tempest calmed, this moment seemed almost too tranquil, too precious to be real. As they sat, Anna couldn't help but notice how Grant observed her, as if committing each detail to memory, seeing her as something delicate yet infinitely valuable. "You're quiet," she teased gently, her smile playing at the corners of her lips. "That's not like you." He exhaled, swirling his wine glass, the liquid catching the light. "I've been thinking." "That's even more dangerous," she jested. But his expression remained serious. Leaning forward, his eyes locked with hers, burning with an unspoken intensity. "Anna, do you realize how many people abandoned me when I was in that coma?" His voice was low, the words heavy with the weight of betrayal. Her smile faded. She knew too well the desertion he spoke of. She had witnessed the cold dismissal by his family, the indifference from those who once called themselves friends. The only light in that darkness, the sole reason he had clung to life, was because one person remained by his side. Because she stayed. "But you didn't, Grant. Oh, how tenderly you whispered to me, day after day, as you watched over me with an unwavering dedication, even when my eyes remained stubbornly shut, when I was nothing but a forsaken hope to all others. You, Anna, refused to let go your resolve as steadfast as the morning sun." Her throat constricted at the thought. She had simply followed her heart, never realizing the profound impact her presence had. But for Grant, it was everything. Leaning in, his fingers found hers on the table, a gentle brush that spoke volumes. "Anna," he murmured, his voice a mix of strength and vulnerability. "I have amassed wealth, power, influence, yet without you they are but hollow echoes in a vast, empty hall." His breath caught, and he continued, "Please, let me finish." His hand enveloped hers, his thumb tracing delicate circles on her skin, a silent language of love and reassurance. "I cannot pinpoint the moment, nor the day it began, but I am certain that during every second I was ensnared in that endless sleep. It was you who breathed life into me. You were my beacon in the suffocating darkness, Anna." Her eyes, now pools of unshed tears, met his. "I love you." He confessed the words, a tidal wave that swept away any lingering doubts, leaving her breathless. Not because she hadn't felt the same, but because hearing it from him solidified their shared truth. Grant Carter, once a man of cold logic and strategic maneuvers, now bared his soul before her. And for the first time, Anna experienced a sensation so profound, so encompassing, that it could only be described as being truly, completely, irrevocably cherished. Tears traced paths down her cheeks, yet her smile shone through them. "Grant," she whispered, her voice a mere breath, "you have no idea how much that means to me." He reached up, gently wiping away a tear, and with a tender promise he said, "Then let me show you." As he leaned in, pressing his forehead to hers, Anna knew this was only the beginning. Months had slipped by since that pivotal evening when Grant bared his soul to Anna, confessing a love that would change their lives forever. In that span of time, everything had transformed. Grant, once broken and battered by fate, had reclaimed his vigor through relentless rehabilitation. His body, once a mere shadow of its former self, now pulsed with renewed strength. No longer was he the man hindered by the cruel twist of fate that nearly claimed his life. Here he was, Grant Carter, once again commanding the boardroom of Carter Enterprises with the poise of a warrior who had journeyed through the inferno and emerged victorious. Yet there was a profound distinction between the Grant of old and the man who now stood before the world. This time he was not solitary in his endeavors. He had Anna by his side. And soon, if she consented, she would be his forever. The rooftop of the Carter estate, bathed in the gentle embrace of the setting sun, cast a tapestry of warm golden light over the city skyline. Anna, her silhouette framed against the vast expanse, was lost in the grandeur of the view. "It's beautiful up here," she whispered, her voice mingling with the playful caress of the evening breeze on her hair. Grant, standing behind her, smiled a smile that reached into the depths of his being. "Not as beautiful as you," he replied, his voice tender, yet filled with an unmistakable conviction. Anna turned her eyes, playful yet warm. Smooth Carter, very smooth. But as she met his gaze, the light-heartedness faded. There was something profound, something eternal in his eyes tonight. Before she could voice her curiosity, Grant inhaled deeply, his posture shifting as he slowly descended to one knee. Anna's heart skipped a beat, her hands instinctively covering her mouth. With a grace that spoke of his resolve, Grant produced a small velvet box, opening it to unveil a ring so exquisite it seemed to capture the very essence of their journey together. The diamond set in an elegant platinum band shimmered with a promise of forever. But it wasn't just the ring. It was the man, the moment, the love that had brought them here. Oh, what a moment it was, when he stood there trembling with emotion, his voice quivering as he whispered, "Anna, you didn't just save my life. You became my life." Before her, his world had been filled with all one could desire: wealth, influence, success. But something vital was absent. He had been missing her. Tears glistened in her eyes as he continued, "You're the reason I fought to live, the reason I found myself again. And now I want to dedicate the rest of my existence to ensuring you understand how invaluable you are to me." With a hopeful gaze, he raised the ring, his eyes locked onto hers, unwavering. "Anna Monroe, will you marry me?" The universe seemed to halt. Anna was speechless, breathless. All she could muster was a frantic nod, laughter and tears mingling as she finally managed, "Yes, oh yes, Grant, 1,000 times yes." Relief washed over him as he slid the ring onto her finger, drawing her into his embrace, into his world, into forever. As their lips met under the fading light of the sun, Anna knew this was her place, her home always. The Carter estate on their wedding day had never been more resplendent. The gardens were transformed into a fairy tale wonderland. White roses adorned the pathways, twinkling lights adorned the majestic oak trees, and the soft strains of music floated through the air as guests marveled at the scene. There at the grand entrance stood Anna, clad in an elegant white gown, her heart beating a wild rhythm. "Are you ready?" Lisa, her maid of honor, whispered with a gentle nudge. Anna inhaled deeply, her fingers clutching her bouquet tighter. Then she looked up, and there he was, Grant, at the altar, in his timeless black tuxedo, his eyes fixed on her as if she were the universe's sole inhabitant. As Anna stepped forward, her nerves melted away, each stride down the aisle a testament to her unwavering resolve. With each step, she drew closer to eternity. Upon reaching him, Grant enveloped her hands in his eyes ablaze with a love so pure it seemed to light up the entire room. Their vows, spoken with solemnity and passion, were not merely words, but a seal on the unbreakable bond they had forged through every trial, every skirmish, every moment of steadfast loyalty. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," declared the officiant, and a joyous cheer filled the air. Grant, with a tender cue, drew Anna into the most heartfelt, soul-stirring kiss. Amidst the celebration, a profound realization dawned upon Anna. This was not the culmination, but the commencement of their tale. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden veil over the gardens, Grant and Anna stole away from the revelry. Hand in hand, they wandered, basking in the new chapter of their lives. No longer would they face hospitals, solitude, or agony. Just them together, forever. Grant gently squeezed her hand, his voice a soft murmur. "You know, I thought I had everything before I met you." Anna, her head resting against his shoulder, smiled. He gazed down at her, his face etched with an expression of soft, endless devotion. "Now I realize that nothing I had before matters because you, Anna, are the greatest thing that's ever happened to me." Overwhelmed, Anna fought back tears moved by the depth of his confession. As they stepped forward into the fading light, she knew they had weathered storms, darkness, and near-death experiences. But love had triumphed, and with Grant by her side, Anna was finally where she belonged. Together, they walked into their happily ever after, their journey, a testament to the enduring power of love. Love isn't merely about finding someone. It's about standing by them through every tempest. Amidst a world that had long abandoned him, one heart refused to give up on Grant. In the end, it wasn't wealth or dominion that rescued him, but a love so profound it reshaped his destiny. If this narrative has stirred your soul, please show your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing to Soul-Stirring Stories. For more tales that touch the heart and ignite the spirit. Enable notifications so you're never out of the loop for stories that resonate deeply. Thank you for watching. Remember, the most enchanting love stories often blossom in the most unforeseen places. Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep the conversation alive. Until our next encounter, may your heart remain open to the magic of unexpected love.